guys, it's Tori, and today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. So I don't remember who this tag was created by. I know it was created a while ago, but I will link both of their channels down below. I know it was two that were involved, and I'll try to link their original videos as well. I think one of them may have disappeared according to a lot of the people I've watched do this tag this year. They've struggled to find the original video. So I'll do my best to at least find as much information on them as I can and link it down below. But basically this tag is all about middle of the year, books you've read so far, books you still want to read before the end of the year, and it sounds like a lot of fun. First of all, sorry if I sound congested. As mentioned in my previous video, I have been sick, and so I still am sick refilming this video. This is another one. If you've seen that one, you know that I had some audio problems. This is another one that had that, so I'm also needing to refilm this one. Anyway, also sorry about any glare on my glasses. I wasn't able to wear my contacts, and my eyesight's so bad that I can't just not wear my glasses because I won't be able to see anything. So that's just the way it's gonna be if there is a glare on my glasses. I tried to position you can see a little bit, but I tried to position the lights so it didn't glare too much, but it still probably will a little bit, as you've probably already noticed, because I can totally see it right now. Anyway, so yes, I decided to do the mid-year book freakout tag primarily because I've seen a lot of people do just like middle of the year books I've read, best books I've read so far, which I thought about doing, but I feel like sometimes I watch those and then I watch the end of the year, like best books of the year videos, and they kind of seem very repetitive because they include all the books that they talked about middle of the year and then a few added ones. And so I feel like the mid-year book freakout tag allows me to talk about some of the books I've really enjoyed reading so far, but makes it a little less repetitive for when I talk about all my favorite books of the year at the end of the year, if that makes sense. So without any more rambling, let's just get right into the tag. So the first question is, what is your favorite book you've read so far this year? And for this one, I had to pick between two, and it was really hard, so I'm just gonna mention both of them because I liked things about both of them a lot. The first book I'll mention in relation to this question is Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. I absolutely love this. This is a YA historical fiction set towards the end of World War II during Operation Hannibal in Germany, where the Nazi government was having all the people who were living in East Germany move to West Germany because the Russians were starting to come in, and a lot of this was done by ship. One of these ships, the Wilhelm Gustloff, I believe is what it was called, sinks, and it actually is one of the largest maritime disaster in history, with the most lives lost. I loved discovering this, learning more about this time period for the Germans and other people who lived in Germany at the time, people who were Polish, who were on the run from everybody basically, people who were Lithuanian but who repatriatized to being German. There's even a Nazi soldier point of view of a man who, he was really creepy. It wasn't fun to read from his perspective, but you could tell that he had some sort of mental issue, like whether he was on the autistic spectrum, whether he was schizophrenic. There was definitely something not quite right in his head. Like he'd had these delusions of grandeur of just, oh, I'm the greatest Nazi soldier there is, and yet when you see him having conversations with these other people, he is clearly treated as like trash, like he's like the guy that cleans the toilets. Like he's not as big of a deal as he acts like he is. But he really seems to believe that he is this incredible soldier and well loved by Hitler and everything. And so it's uncomfortable to read from his point of view in a lot of ways, but you could also tell that he had a mental illness, which was very interesting. I found the romance to be realistic and appealing, and like I said, I always love learning about history, especially in historical fiction type stories. And the second book that I wanted to mention for my favorite book so far is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This is a retelling of a Polish fairy tale set in this valley that's surrounded by the wood, which is this creepy place. When people go in, they either don't come out, or if they do come out, they come out corrupted. This valley is protected by this wizard who's ruled there for 100 years. protected these people. All he asks in return is every 10 years from the rising generation, he picks one of the girls to come and stay with him and help him. And when they come out, they want to leave the valley, and nobody really understands why. None of them ever stay. He always tends to choose the prettiest, most talented girl amongst the generation he's choosing from. And the main character, Agnieszka, I probably butchered that, but you know, it's fine. Her best friend Kasia is definitely that girl. She's the talented one, she's beautiful, and everybody knows that she's going to be the one picked, but of course the main character is the one who's picked, and things go on from there. I know it kind of sounds like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's not. It definitely focuses primarily on the wood, not so much on the fact that she's forced to stay with him. It was just so good. I think my one complaint about this book is the romance. It has a trope that I really, really don't like, but I loved the story, I loved the plot line, and I loved the main character. I found the plot twist to be fun, and I found the pacing to be amazing with a book that is a standalone fantasy that's just that long. I felt like I got a lot of story, but I didn't feel rushed reading it, and so I really, really liked that and highly recommend. The next question is best sequel you've read so far this year. I haven't read a ton of sequels this year just because I haven't really been reading a lot of series lately for some reason, but one that I did just finish very, very recently that I absolutely loved is Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. This is the third book in the Stormlight Archive series by Brandon Sanderson, and it was so well done. I loved returning to this world, getting to know these characters better and their backgrounds. I feel like I needed to take notes while reading this book, this series, because I'm starting to lose track of things because there's just so much information, but it's fine. I still really, really enjoyed this, love the characters, and even though it's huge, it's so worth it. If you're interested in epic fantasy, Brandon Sanderson is a good place to start. With any of his books. He's just amazing. Next is a new release that you haven't read yet, but you would like to, and for this one I decided to go with Enchanté by Guida Trellis. This is a YA fantasy set during the French Revolution. That's such a buzzword for me. I love anything set in France. I just want to read, and it just seems very interesting. I don't really know much more than that, but like I said, French Revolution with magic elements in it. Sign me up. Next is a most anticipated release that hasn't come out yet, but will by the end of the year. I have two for this one. The first one is Five Dark Fates by Kendar Blake. This is the fourth and final book in the Three Dark Crowns series, and I'm just really excited to see what ends up happening. I have really enjoyed this series. It's definitely not my favorite of all time, but I found the world to be very fascinating. I'm very curious to see how the series wrapped up. I'm kind of preparing myself to be disappointed because I just feel like there's so much more that could be explored in this world, and it could become so much more vast than it currently is. And that's what I want out of it, but with only one book left, I'm probably not going to get that. So I'm preparing myself for that disappointment, but I do really want to know how Kendar Blake ends up completing this series and what direction it ends up going. And the other one I'm really excited for is Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. As I said, I read Salt of the Sea by Ruta Sepetys, really loved it, and she's coming out with a new book in the next couple of months, I want to say, in like September, I think. But that one is about the Spanish Revolution, which I know little to nothing about. So I am very curious to pick that up and see what it's like. Next question is biggest disappointment, and that would definitely have to be The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I feel like this book had almost everything I wanted it to have, but it was all that good stuff, that whimsical, mysterious, creepy, slightly creepy stuff that I wanted it to have was overshadowed by all the men objectifying women and constantly, like, every single male character I felt like was constantly undressing every woman they saw with their eyes, and just even the women that you got to know pretty well were very much portrayed as just these women who were there to love men, and I just didn't like that at all. And as I said, for me, it overshadowed all the stuff that I wanted the book to have. That it did have, I just didn't get to enjoy it as much because the book spent so much time in almost every scene having these sexual comments made by all these men, sexual thoughts by the main character about every attractive woman he saw, and it was just no good. Just didn't like that. Next question is the biggest surprise you've had this year as far as books go, and for that one I had to go with Rook by Sharon Cameron. I started off reading this book thinking it was going to be like a 3 stars. Got partway through and I felt like it was a 2-star, and then by the end it was a 4-star. So it definitely went all over the place on the rating chart. And maybe it was a 4-star for me just because it surprised me how much I enjoyed it. I loved the world in this. I found it to be fascinating. This is kind of a retelling of the Scarlet Pimpernel, but in a futuristic setting, a regressed society setting. So it's almost like history is repeating itself, including in France with the French Revolution, and there's this person who is saving these people from the Blade. So if you know much about the Scarlet Pimpernel, this is definitely a retelling of that in a lot of ways. It was fascinating, and I found that the plot twists were very well done. I felt like there were enough to keep me engaged. It wasn't like one big plot twist or anything like that. There were a lot of pretty big plot twists that helped keep the story moving. And yeah, really ended up enjoying this a lot more than I thought I would. Next question is favorite new author. And for this one, I could go with Rudis Petties, but I decided to go with Kristen Hanna, who wrote The Nightingale. I also read Magic Hour by her, and both of these have been new favorites for sure. I just ordered a few more books by her because I just love her style of writing. I love that all her stories focus on relationships, different types of relationships. She has some that focus on sister relationships, some that focus on mother-daughter. I have one that's like a marriage that is kind of falling apart, another one that is a female friendship, and I love that focus. I love her books and they always make me cry, which, you know, is always a good thing for me. I love a book that will make me cry. So, question number 8 is a new fictional crush. And unfortunately, this year I haven't read any books that have included a new fictional crush for me. As I've gotten older, I've become a lot more picky about my male fictional character crushes. Nobody this year so far, but hopefully by the end of the year that will change, because I always like adding new fictional crushes to my list. Next is a new favorite character, and for this one I have a couple I could have gone with, but I decided to go with Ethelberta from The Hand of Ethelberta by Thomas Hardy. Ethelberta is such a fascinating character. I love her internal struggle, especially in a society where that internal struggle is heightened because of the culture she lives in, societal rules, things like that. I love how intelligent and strong she is, while also being very nurturing and kind and good. I just found her very fascinating and highly recommend reading this book if you are interested in Thomas Hardy, or if you just like classics and you haven't read this one. This is a good one. Next is a book that has made you cry, and I cry a lot in books. I'm not gonna lie, I definitely am a sympathetic crier, so especially if it's like where the characters are grieving in the book, if like someone just like dies, but there's not really a time to grieve for them, I tend not to cry as much, even if it does make me sad. I more cry in reaction to other people grieving and crying. But I decided to go with a book that it was a read for me, but I've never cried in it before. But for some reason this time around I was listening to the audiobook and I cried, and that is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. I've never cried in this book, and the part I cried at was actually the Mirror of Erised. Just like this moment of like Harry, who has grown up in this abusive family. He's never even seen a picture of his parents. He has no idea what they look like, and like having him see them for the first time, and like that moment when he realizes that the people he's seeing in the mirror are his family, it's just it made me cry, obviously, like I just said. And then I actually watched the movie and I cried in the movie at that part too. And so I don't know, I've never cried at that part before, but maybe just the closer I get to the series and the more I feel for these characters as I grow older and continue to reread them and watch the movies and feel, again, closer to the story, the more emotions like that come to me. But it just got to me. It just got to me, man. I was like in my car going to Walmart listening to the audiobook, got to that part and totally started crying. And you know, it's fine. Number 11 is a book that made you laugh. And for this one, I decided to go with Sourdough by Robin Sloan. This is such a fun, whimsical story combining baking with technology and some magical realism elements. And there were just a lot of nerdy characters in this that just made me laugh, and I just loved getting to know them. Highly recommend Robin Sloan's books if you want something that's just lighthearted and fun and something that will just make you laugh, because these definitely do that for me. Okay, most beautiful book you've purchased this year. This is a little hard because I feel like I haven't really purchased very many like beautiful books. Like, not like I've ordered ugly books or anything, but none of them have been like standout beautiful for me. But one that I did get that I do really like is Under the Greenwood Tree by Thomas Hardy. This is just a pretty edition. It has a nice cloth bound cover, first of all, which I really like. Has this little hay thing, scarecrow thing on the front. I think this was a used book, and I think whoever owned it before just like spray painted the top, because like the side and bottom don't have it. It's just on the top. But when it's sitting on my shelf, all you can see is the top, so I kind of like that. And then the end pages are a map of where Thomas Hardy sets most of his books around where he lived in Wessex. And I like it because I feel like it is made to look like an older book, but it's clearly pretty new. Like, opening and looking at the pages, they're very clean and crisp, and so you can tell it's a newer edition of it, but it's just made to look very old. Like, I don't know, yeah, you can see that a little bit. That gold outline around the title on the spine I really like. And the last question is, what is a book that you need to read by the end of the year? And I have 3 for this one, because I have a goal to finish all the books that I owned previous to my mission. So if you don't know this, September 2016, I entered the mission field, served for 18 months in Michigan for my church. It was an incredible experience, would never give it away, but I didn't get to read during that time because I was too busy doing other things. Plus, it was a rule not to read anything outside of a few given books. I have 3 books left that I owned before that. So I got home end of February of 2017 or 2018. Gosh, yeah, 2018. So basically these books are really, really old and I just need to get them read, and there's only 3 of them left. So I feel like I can definitely do it. It won't be too hard for me to do. But those 3 books are Burning Glass by Catherine Purdy. Then I also have What is Hidden by Lauren Skidmore. And the last one is Dangerous by Shannon Hale. All 3 of these books really are pretty short. This one is just over like between 300 and 400 pages, but the writing's pretty large. This one, as I already said, is pretty short. This one I feel like of all of these would take me the longest, but the font's pretty big in this one too, so I don't think it will be that bad. And yeah, so these 3 I need to read by the end of the year to reach my goal. So hopefully I do that. I already have plans to read Dangerous in August for the Newts. Spoiler alert for my TBR, but so I really think I'll be able to do it pretty easily. So that is it. That is my mid-year book freakout tag. Let me know down below either some books that you've read this year so far that you've really loved, or any books that you are excited to read, and I will see you next time. Bye!